The SO Defaults tab located in the System Setup option identifies the different features we can change for sales order. The first section, Sales Order, has an entry listed Default for Ready to Ship. That means when you create a new sales order, whether or not by default you want to mark that new sales order to be ready to be shipped. That comes into play when you want to print packing lists or invoices. The next item, default for displaying special notes, is for the customer, that when you create a sales order for a customer, whether or not you want to display special notes for that customer. An example for this type of usage may be for if a customer bounces a check, you may want to have that displayed so that the user knows that this order has to go through a credit check. The next entry, default for printing special notes. This is using the same fields for special notes, but in this instance, what we're doing is you may want to use this for maybe printing directions on the sales order itself for some type of a delivery purpose. The directions or any notes like, must get signed PO or whatever will be printed in the upper right hand section of the printed sales order. The next item, Hide Contract Pricing in Sales Order, indicates whether or not you want to see the customer's own item codes and be able to enter in the order using the customer's item codes that would be set up underneath the customer's contract pricing screen and the customer maintenance screen. The next item, print requested date on packing slip, is just that, whether or not to print that information on the packing slip. Default for FOB, that's the default value when you create a sales order for the FOB field. Next, print weight on packing slip indicates whether or not you have weights defined in your system and want them printed on the packing list. Copies to print. When you print a sales order, how many do you want to print automatically? Display cost on sales order entry. Whether or not you want the user to see what the cost is during sales order entry, and the next entry, allow cost editing of all products, is whether or not you want to let them to edit that cost. The next item, commission default for non-stock items, whether or not you want to indicate a non-stock item as being commissionable. If you have a shipper number, you can put that in there. The next item is allow editing of salesperson for line items. The idea here is that if you don't have multiple salespeople on one order, then you should not allow them to edit it for line items. It can only cause problems. Display UOM on sales order is whether or not you want to use the units of measure in the sales order entry system. If you don't use them, obviously you probably don't want to see it. The next section, global skip options. These are different options that will relate to all of the users. That means that these options are stored within the data sm.mdb. First entry, skip back order, whether or not you want to skip the back order column when you're doing order entry. Skip discount, skip request date, skip notes, and skip salesperson. These are all fields that you would want to indicate whether or not you want to skip over them during order entry. You could always click into those fields and make an entry if you need to. The next section, user skip options. These are all options that are related to the data smu.mdb, which is normally kept locally on the user's hard drive. So the idea here is that if you have one station or section of your company that is in a retail situation, you might have a little retail outlet in a warehouse, you can actually have a point of sale terminal set up with different skip options than other users who may be taking telephone orders. And here We give the option to skip the description, order, ship, tax, and skip the price as well, which lends itself well if you're doing barcode scanning and you just want to scan each item without touching the keyboard, and it'll put each item on the order as it scans it through. That concludes the SO defaults options. We can go ahead to the next tab, AP and PO defaults.